Hi, everyone. I am Laura Bartholomew, a Baltimore native and proud Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health 2014 alumnus. I was fortunate to attend the Occupational and Environmental Hygiene program while working as a full-time professional as a product steward in the chemical industry. I have over 18 years experience, most of which have been spent in the product stewardship and regulatory space. I am grateful to have this opportunity to provide this overview on product stewardship since it is an evolving area of occupational health and safety. Our learning objectives today include developing an understanding of what product stewardship is and how it started. We will review the inception and how product stewardship has changed over the years. We will discuss the role of a business product steward and what competencies are needed to be successful. And last, we will use our understanding of product stewardship principles learned through this overview to discuss a critical thinking exercise. So what is product stewardship? Well, if you asked professionals in the space, you may get a variety of definitions, but an overall concept around managing product safety along the value chain responsibly. The definition listed here is from the Product Stewardship Society, which was the first group to formally recognize these professionals and serves to help and grow the profession today. Product stewardship is the responsible management of health, safety, and environmental risks through the product lifecycle along the value chain to minimize negative impact and maximize value. Additionally, product stewardship is a diverse space that continues to evolve due to increased regulatory and societal recognition on the importance of protecting human health and the environment and the role it plays in demonstrating business value. Basically, businesses are realizing that good business practice involves product stewardship and is needed and well recognized. These are some common areas where product stewardship is involved, and depending on the industry, the organization, the type of products and/or services, the needs can vary. My experiences have been within a business supporting a particular product line, helping to identify and mitigate safety, health, and environmental risks along the product lifecycle to produce safe and sustainable products. I have also had the advantage of working in companies that highly value the integration of product stewardship into business processes and have robust organizations and subject matter experts to support. I say this because not all organizations have the same level of product stewardship. In the chemical industry, as part of being a member of the American Chemistry Council, companies agree to implement responsible care, the chemical industry's world-class environmental, health, safety, and security performance initiative. This means there is a certification provided by a third party who audits on a frequent basis the systems in place to certify a company meets the requirements. In order to understand the hazards of a material, mammalian and toxicological environmental data may be generated or literature searches are performed on existing data, and then that data is used along with exposure information to perform a risk assessment to determine safety factors. There are requirements around providing safety and regulatory information to the users of the material to inform of the hazards through labeling and safety data sheets, otherwise known as hazard communication. From a product regulatory compliance perspective, depending on the products and geographical location in which you sell, there may be different product compliance requirements. A significant requirement for chemicals are global chemical inventories that exist. For example, in the US, the Environmental Protection Agency is responsible for reviewing new and existing substances under the Toxic Substance Control Act. Or in Europe, the European Registration, Evaluation, Authorization, and Restriction of Chemicals, otherwise known as REACH, is governed by the European Chemical Agency. And this governs the manufacture, import, and sale of new and existing chemicals. Product stewardship not only takes into account the scientific data of the product, but also the perception and reputational risks, which sometimes are even more critical than the science. A new area that is rapidly expanding is around sustainability and looking at CO2 emissions and climate impact of products in the commercial space. Product stewardship also helps to answer customer inquiries, and safety, health, environmental information can be provided to customers as well. The last one here is around mergers and acquisitions, and product stewardship can play a part here to understand how other companies value and what their product stewardship and management systems look like for their products. Now we are going to take a look at some of the historical milestones towards the development of product stewardship as a profession. As I mentioned on the previous slide, in 1988, the American Chemical Council and Industry Association adopted the Responsible Care Management System, which are guiding principles for managing safety, health, environmental, and security risks. All ACC companies are required to be certified against these managing principles and undergo a third-party audit periodically to ensure adherence with these codes. This is supported by senior leadership all the way up to the CEO level. In 2000, the nonprofit Product Stewardship Institute was founded as a result of extended producer responsibility legislation focused on environmental stewardship related to recovery, recycle, and reclaim efforts. This is reflected in bottle deposits, battery recovery, and architectural paint. In 2012, the Product Stewardship Society was formed as an affiliate of the AIHI, or American Industrial Hygiene Association. And around 2015, the first product stewardship graduate program was started at Indiana University Fairbanks School of Public Health. Taking us into the 2020s with the Board for EHS credential, it was recognized the Certified Professional Product Steward, or CPPS, credential to distinguish professionals working in the product stewardship space. This is similar to the Certified Safety Professional, or CPS. I was also happy to understand and see that Hopkins recently announced their certificate program. So, product stewardship is an evolving and emerging area of concern and opportunity for companies and society. Product regulatory compliance is the foundation and basic right to operate principle. However, product stewardship extends beyond compliance, evaluating health and environmental hazards combined with exposure to make a risk characterization and mitigation plan. For example, there may be a highly hazardous substance or raw material that is used in an industrial controlled closed-loop system with no occupational exposures and minimal environmental release, and is reacted in the process, so no raw material is present in the final product. The risk for this product would be different than using a highly hazardous substance where worker exposure is present and could end up in a final consumer product with potential public exposure. Product stewardship continues to build learning from product launches and sometimes unfortunate incidents, but then we can incorporate this thinking into future assessments. These perception risks can also have impact on brand reputation and whether or not consumers trust the brand. The more recent aspects around product sustainability has also been a factor to consider around making not only safer products, but also more sustainable ones. I like to think of a business product steward as an integrator who gets input from various stakeholders to identify and mitigate product risks along the value chain and works with the business to implement risk management to avoid potential compliance issues and product liabilities while also addressing customer needs and expectations. The role of a business product steward is to collaborate with stakeholders along the value chain to identify and manage safety, health, and environmental product risks. Also, to monitor and interpret emerging regulations and existing to understand regulatory impact, provide guidance to inform the business strategy, ensuring the right to operate for continued business operations, driving continuous improvement and training amongst the organization, and addressing internal and external stakeholder product safety and regulatory questions. One aspect I have really enjoyed as a product steward is working and collaborating with stakeholders both internally and externally. I have been able to develop a great understanding of business operations and different roles throughout the business. I have also had the opportunity to work with people of different expertise, backgrounds, and cultures. What keeps it exciting and challenging is that regulations continue to emerge, but this also brings about opportunity to influence and shape those regulations with the best available science. Product stewardship brings value to the business in helping to advise on strategy and helping customers see us as a valued partner. Let's take a look at what types of skills are needed to be a successful product steward. In general, product stewards have a technical background, typically in a science or engineering discipline. However, I've also worked with colleagues who've come from marketing or supply chain. The ability to review regulatory framework and understand impact and strategize a compliance plan is key, as well as pulling available information that exists, even though there may be gaps but making a recommendation based off of the best available information at the time and then adjusting as needed when you get more information. The Product Stewardship Society identifies 7 competencies as soft skills, and I also included the last one here, risk management. So the first one, individual effectiveness. It's important to be a self-motivator, problem solver, manage your time. There's usually a lot of conflicting priorities. A big one here is also around influential management. You don't necessarily have authority, but it's very important to be influential in the risks that you identify to drive change in the organization. And then, of course, clear and effective communication, depending on the audiences that you are facing. Teamwork, a lot of collaboration exists within the product stewardship organization, as well as within all business levels internally, as well as with customers externally. Customer service. So there's a variety of customers, both internally within the business, that you need to be able to articulate complex regulatory guidance to, as well as externally with customers around safety and product use, with the overall goal to be able to achieve compliance and responsibly use a product through its life cycle. Crisis management is where we would bring solutions or work with thought partners to identify risks and what mitigations are needed. Often there may be unforeseeable circumstances where a crisis arises and you have to help advise on the path forward to mitigate the issue as quickly as possible. And this could be related to a potential recall of a product or a potential customer issue. Often we need to engage with legal or seek outside counsel. And so it's important to know when a situation has arisen where you may need this additional level of support. Management of change is really key as businesses are constantly making modifications, especially to adjust supply chain to account for shortages or changes in suppliers. And so it's really important to be able to assess what that change means from a regulatory or from a product stewardship perspective. The business acumen, in order to be a really effective product steward for your business line, it's important to understand the business goals, their risk tolerance, how they treat confidential business information, and know your business language. Businesses each have their kind of own acronyms, and being able to understand and translate their terminology and integrate your product stewardship terminology into their processes. And the last one here around risk management is really the ability to advise on implementation of a particular compliance initiative or non-compliance related initiative. What are the goals of product stewardship? The key goals of product stewardship are to drive continuous improvement and critical thinking among stakeholders. And we do this by using the facts known combined with future thinking to help the business make decisions. We use tools to facilitate answering these types of questions and walking through potential scenarios to prevent future crisis needs or issues in the marketplace. And we do this by asking 4 main questions. What could go wrong? What do we know? Are we appropriately engaged? Are any concerns likely to be raised? In product stewardship, it is key to understand the inputs and full life cycle of a product from its inception through the end of life to be able to evaluate safety, health, and environmental risks. You may be familiar with the terminology cradle to grave. One of the biggest changes I have seen is the move from thinking about product life cycle linearly to a more holistic and circular approach. And not only looking at risks, but also opportunities to decrease emissions and wastes. Sometimes this information can be challenging to obtain, especially for areas outside of companies' control. For example, as a supplier, once it leaves your gate, then it may often be difficult to understand all the various applications for which your product is being used. Product stewardship creates value through the business in various ways. Number 1 is compliance and the right to operate. If we aren't compliant, we can face potential fines and costly consequences. We also help to answer customer questions around safety and regulatory to meet their expectations. We want to ensure our customers have the latest information around how to handle our products safely. We bring a viewpoint on external feedback around perceptions on certain products. And we know there are perceptions that can be negative, especially around chemicals from the public and the safe use of chemicals in the public space. Product stewardship can help provide input on proactive ways to assess potential for incidents or help if an issue does arise. It can also be a competitive advantage. Customers want to know they are working with responsible companies with high standards for safety and the environment. Now we're going to walk through a critical exercise with our new product stewardship principles in mind. So the example here is that R&D is evaluating a new additive for a current product in an existing consumer use application. And when I say we want to use our new principles, this is usually in the form of asking questions as a protocol and trying to understand from a product regulatory compliance, what is the composition of the product? Do we know all of the aspects, down to parts per million level, or how much information do we need to gather there? Are these substances listed on global chemical inventories? Can we rely on our suppliers to provide us that information, or do we need information to make that assessment ourselves? What type of product application? So we have to take into account potential sensitive applications. Is this going into a potential product where children may be exposed? What other types of local or global regulations may exist for this product? So I mentioned, consumer product regulations. Also, you may have hazard communication regulations under occupational health requirements. There may be regulations regarding emissions like volatile organic compounds. So really understanding what is the full picture of all the regulations in scope for this change that we're assessing. Are there any substances on a potential watch list? Are there emerging regulations coming out about this particular new additive, or is there already existing information that suggests that it could be listed as a carcinogen, mutagen, reproductive toxin? So we would want to factor that into our compliance assessment. From a product risk and liability, we want to be asking ourselves, what are the human health hazards? What are the environmental hazards? From a product life cycle, what is the supply chain? How are we going to manufacture this? What type of packaging are we going to use? How are we going to be distributing it? Are there transportation factors to consider? Can we only ship it in certain packaging requirements? How could potential exposures occur from a manufacturing standpoint all the way to how somebody is going to use it? And can we mitigate any of these potential exposures by maybe using a different cap or certain packaging to prevent somebody from opening the material for which it's being sold into? How are these substances perceived in the marketplace? This gets at the perception. And what are the concerns around product misuse? What could go wrong is a very broad question, but this is where you're kind of talking through different scenarios to anticipate what could go wrong. What are the different impurities? Have there been any product recalls for similar products? Can we learn from products that have already been in the marketplace or have had similar issues? And can we learn from any of those scenarios? And is this application consistent with the company's core values? And last here around product sustainability. What are the benefits of this product? Do the benefits outweigh the risks? What is the societal contribution? What are the concerns around product carbon footprint and life cycle? And can the product be used or recycled or reclaimed? How can we own this within the supply chain to ensure that we are being safety and environmental stewards of our product? And so with that, I hope this gave you a taste of what product stewardship can look like from a business perspective. And you can see that it's a dynamic and exciting world and continues to evolve and change. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions, and you can reach me through email at lwebert@gmail.com, LWEBBERT@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.